What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Countdown to Endgame, where I'll be counting down the 21 Marvel Cinematic Universe movies leading into Avengers Endgame coming out this month. And tonight I am doing a video on the first Avengers film released in 2012. This movie is my favorite of all the MCU movies so far. And if I did make a ranking video a few weeks back, I'll put the link above me if you want to see. I will just tell you now, number one was this movie, and the reason being is that this is the first time we see all these characters from the previous movies like Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Thor, Captain America, and all these other minor characters just come together in this crossover event. And in movie cinema, you've never really seen anything like this. And I always say every decade throughout movies, there's this one movie or movies that it's an event for that decade. Star Wars was it for the 70s. For this decade, I believe it is the Avengers. At least that's one of the movies. This is something that we've never seen before, and it's just special to see. And it's not just about the story, it's about the character development, the emotions, how high the stakes are with these characters, and it gives you like the promise of what's to come for the future. And we've seen, obviously, a good outcome from the later movies after this one was released. With the cast, it's mainly the same cast you've seen in the previous movies. The only new addition is Colby Smulders, who plays Agent Maria Hill. Otherwise, are all familiar faces. And the story is pretty much the beginning of the Infinity War that we come to know, whereas the last five were more of a origin story for our characters. This one pretty much begins that Infinity Saga, where we find out more about the Tesseract as we knew about in Captain America. That was a little glimpse of that one stone. And here it's the main object that Loki is trying to go after, and along with the scepter that he holds, which also later we find out in Age of Ultron is the Mind Stone, but we'll get into that later. The main focus for this movie is the Tesseract, and Nick Fury eventually gets the team together of the Avengers, tries to recruit them. They pretty much spend a good 30 minutes getting all the characters together, but the way they build it up, the exposition of this movie is well done in my opinion. So it's 30 minutes of exposition. The next 30 minutes is pretty much how they all handle each other. There's a bit of conflict between the characters. About over an hour into the movie is when the conflict really begins between Loki and the other characters, and then things build up as you get to the attack of New York. But pretty much it is just a fight against the Avengers, Loki, and the Centauri that are working with Loki. And behind the scenes, of course, it is Thanos. We don't get to see him until the post-credits, which is foreshadowing of Endgame.
To challenge them is to court death.
Sometimes movies, when it has such exposition with so many characters, it can get either dull or just drag a little bit. I thought that was one of the more interesting parts at the beginning of the movie, when you're seeing all these characters and how they end up getting recruited and then meeting each other, which were the even more exciting scenes for me. Like, I loved the part when Iron Man and Captain America first met after capturing Loki.
Make your move, reindeer games. Good move.
Mr. Stark.
Captain.
And then another one that I really liked is when the conflict in the forest between Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man.
Hey! That's enough! Now, I don't know what you plan on doing here.
I've come here to put an end to Loki's schemes.
Then prove it. Put that hammer down.
Yeah, no. Bad call. He loves his hammer.
You want me to put the hammer down?
Usually, when I watch a movie, I can see something that I really didn't like or something that could have been improved on. With Avengers, it's honestly, there's not a lot I can say that needed to be changed or that could have made better. The characters that were developed in this movie, and they had a lot to juggle with, were constructed and executed really good. The plot wasn't too simple. It was a decent, fair enough like plot that you can be like, all right, this makes sense why this is happening. not a lot of plot holes, and even the ending was an appropriate way to end this movie that could lead into the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There is one thing though I wish they would have done, and this is my fun fact by the way, that while they were writing this movie, originally they had planned to have Ant-Man and the Wasp have their introduction to be featured in this movie. And I don't know if it was the screenwriters or Josh Whedon that was their idea, but I believe it was the studio that said they did not want to have them in this movie and not mention them at all until Ant-Man had his own feature debut in his origin story. So it would have been cool to have Ant-Man and the Wasp in this movie because he was one of the founders of the original Avengers team. As for my Endgame theory, I know I already mentioned the Tesseract, but in regards to something else, a few months ago they released some photos of the set of Endgame, and you can see here, the set kind of looks like New York. It might be hard to see because you're looking mainly at a grounded area, but it looks like it was an aftermath of some battle. You see Captain America, Iron Man, and Ant-Man standing there. Captain America is interesting because he's wearing the uniform that he wore in this Avengers movie. Now, he's never worn this uniform since this movie, so that's what leads a lot of people to believe that there is this time travel quantum realm theory. Ant-Man is there, so he knows something about the quantum realm. He knows it's something having to do with time travel. So that leads all of us to believe that they must go back in time, primarily to this time, to stop what's happening in the Battle of New York. Maybe to stop Loki, maybe to stop the Centauri, maybe just to get the Tesseract back. We don't know, but it seems to be this is a key moment to the future of what leads to Endgame. And we all know Thanos is responsible for this attack on New York, even though we don't see him at all until that post-credits scene. He is the one that orchestrated this, he manipulated it, he's the one who pretty much sent Loki down to wreak havoc on New York just to get that Tesseract because he is aware of these Infinity Stones by now. And that was my thoughts on my favorite MCU movie so far, The Avengers. Tell me in the comments below, what's your favorite Avengers movie? How would you rank the 3 movies so far? Do you think Endgame's gonna take the #1 spot for you? I have a feeling, for me, I think they're gonna go all out. It's gonna be an epic 3-hour event. I cannot wait. For my next video, I will be doing Iron Man 3, the 3rd installment in the Iron Man trilogy. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you like and subscribe. Tell others about my channel if they're interested in this countdown to Endgame or anything else that I may be doing on this channel. I hope you all have a great week. I will see you all at the movies.